Everyone says Sagittarius loves freedom. They're wrong. Sagittarius doesn't love freedom. They fear commitment. And everything you think is wanderlust is actually avoidance. I've analyzed Sagittarius placements for 9 years. What I discovered isn't romantic. It's a defense mechanism. The Sagittarius you admire for being adventurous isn't exploring the world. They're running from intimacy. Stay until the end. The reason Sagittarius keeps moving will break your heart. Let's start with what everyone gets wrong. When you meet a Sagittarius, they seem exciting. They've been to 20 countries. They have wild stories. They talk about philosophy and meaning and experience. They seem so alive, so free, so unrestricted by the boring limitations that trap everyone else. And people romanticize this. They call it inspiring. But watch what happens when things get real. When someone wants to go deeper. When a relationship moves past surface level fun into actual vulnerability. The Sagittarius disappears. Not always physically. Sometimes they're still there, but emotionally they've already left. They book a flight. They start a new project. They find a reason to create distance. Because here's what nobody tells you. Sagittarius doesn't explore because they love discovery. They explore because they're terrified of being known. Here's the pattern. Sagittarius meets someone. The beginning is incredible. Intense conversations, spontaneous adventures, big emotions, grand gestures. Everything feels limitless. But then around month 3 or 4, something shifts. The other person wants consistency. They want to know where this is going. They want to plan something more than 2 weeks in advance. And the Sagittarius panics. Not dramatic panic. Quiet panic. Internal panic. They start talking about needing space. About not wanting to lose themselves. About how relationships shouldn't feel like cages. And the other person feels guilty for wanting something basic like reliability. But here's what's really happening. The Sagittarius feels the walls closing in. Not because the other person is controlling. But because intimacy requires staying still long enough to be seen. And being seen means being judged. Being found lacking. Being disappointed. And Sagittarius would rather run forever than risk that moment. Let me tell you about the 3 layers of Sagittarius avoidance. First layer. The philosophical escape. This is what you see on the surface. The Sagittarius talks about freedom, growth, expansion, experience. They have beautiful speeches about not being tied down, about living authentically, about following your truth. It sounds deep. It sounds evolved. But it's a script. It's the story they tell themselves to justify never stopping. Because if they frame running as spiritual growth, they never have to call it what it is. Fear. Second layer. The geographic cure. Sagittarius genuinely believes that the next place will be different. The next city, the next country, the next adventure will finally make them feel whole. So they keep moving. New job, new apartment, new relationship, new project. Always chasing the feeling they had at the beginning of the last thing. But here's the problem. Geography doesn't fix internal emptiness. You take yourself with you. The Sagittarius arrives in Bali or Berlin or Buenos Aires, and for 3 weeks it's perfect. They feel alive again. But then the novelty wears off and the same restlessness returns. Because the issue isn't location. It's intimacy. And you can't outrun yourself. Third layer. The intimacy threshold. Every Sagittarius has a threshold. A specific point in any relationship where they feel too close, too seen, too vulnerable. And when they hit that threshold, they sabotage. They pick a fight. They cheat. They ghost. They suddenly remember they've always wanted to go back to school in another country. The specific method varies, but the result is always the same. Distance. Reset. Back to surface level where it's safe. Where nobody can hurt them because nobody really knows them. This is the layer almost nobody sees. Because by the time you get close enough to trigger it, you're already being pushed away. Let me tell you a real story. I knew a Sagittarius named Maya. She was magnetic. She'd lived in 7 countries by age 30. She spoke 4 languages. She had incredible stories. Everyone wanted to be her friend, and men fell in love with her constantly. But I watched the pattern repeat 5 times in 3 years. She'd meet someone amazing. They'd have an intense, beautiful connection for 2 to 4 months. Then she'd find a reason to leave. A job opportunity abroad. A spiritual retreat. A friend who needed her in another city. And she always framed it as growth, as following her path, as not settling. But one night after her 5th breakup, she broke down. She told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I'm so tired of running. But every time someone gets close enough to see who I really am, I'm terrified they'll realize I'm not as interesting as they thought. So I leave before they can leave me. And I tell myself it's because I love freedom. But maybe I just don't know how to stay." That's when I understood. Sagittarius doesn't love freedom. They love the illusion of infinite possibility. Because as long as everything is temporary, nothing can really fail. You can't be disappointed by a relationship that never gets serious. You can't fail at a job you only stay at for 6 months. You can't be rejected by a community you never fully join. The constant movement protects them from the one thing they fear most: being fully present, fully committed, and still not being enough. Here's the psychology behind it. Sagittarius is a fire sign ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion. Jupiter doesn't do boundaries. It doesn't do limits. It's always reaching further, exploring more, expanding bigger. And Sagittarius internalized this as their identity. They're supposed to be the adventurer, the philosopher, the one who never settles. But here's the problem. Expansion without integration is just escapism. You can experience 100 things without actually processing any of them. You can meet 1,000 people without truly connecting with one. And at some point, all that movement becomes a way to avoid feeling. Because if you're always chasing the next thing, you never have to sit with the emptiness of right now. The tragedy of Sagittarius is this. They're searching for meaning everywhere except where it actually lives. In consistency. In commitment. In the boring, beautiful, mundane moments of staying with someone through the hard parts. Real intimacy isn't found on a mountaintop in Nepal. It's found in choosing the same person on the day you don't feel like it. It's found in staying in the same city long enough to build roots. It's found in committing to something past the honeymoon phase when it stops being exciting and starts being real. But Sagittarius never stays long enough to find that out. They leave right before the breakthrough. Every single time. So what can a Sagittarius do? First, stop calling it freedom. Call it what it is. I'm afraid of being trapped. I'm afraid of being known. I'm afraid of staying long enough to disappoint someone. Name the fear. Second, practice staying. Not forever. Just practice. Stay in one place for 1 year. Stay in one relationship past the 4-month mark. Stay with the discomfort when the novelty wears off. Your growth isn't in the next place. It's in staying put long enough to deal with yourself. Third, therapy. Specifically, work on attachment and fear of abandonment. Because most Sagittarius runners learned early that people leave. So they leave first. Fourth, redefine freedom. Real freedom isn't the absence of commitment. It's the ability to choose commitment without feeling like you're losing yourself. That's liberation. Everything else is just running. And if you love a Sagittarius, here's what you need to know. Their restlessness isn't about you. Their need to keep moving isn't because you're boring. It's because they're terrified. When they start talking about needing space, what they're really saying is, I'm getting too close and I'm scared. You have a choice. You can give them space and watch them run. Or you can gently hold the boundary and say, I see you running and I'm staying anyway. Not everyone will stay. But the ones who truly love them will prove that commitment doesn't mean cage. It means someone chose you and keeps choosing you even when you're not easy. Sagittarius doesn't love freedom. Sagittarius is terrified of being seen completely and still being chosen. And once you see that fear, the constant running makes perfect sense. Are you a Sagittarius? When did you first learn that staying meant getting hurt? Or do you love a Sagittarius and finally understand why they always have one foot out the door? Comment below. Next video we're talking about Libra. And the title is, Libras don't want balance, they want control. You won't want to miss it. Click right there.